This is Jim from the Pain PT. Always good to see everybody here. I have another success story here, and you guys know I love to bring success stories with this work. And so I have Simon here from Canada. Simon, how are you doing?
Hello from Montreal here.
Montreal, yeah. And I know you were wanted to come on and you were worried about your English, but your English sounds great to me. And
Yes, I spent lots of time in British Columbia, so I'm fine.
yeah, you speak great. Yeah, so I'm going to turn it over to you, and let's go through your story and what happened to you, and then how you got to where you are now.
Yeah, feel free to interrupt anytime, redirect, whatever. So the first thing that I would say is that I developed the classic personality that you guys always talk about. Check all the items: perfectionism, people pleasing, do-gooding, hard time saying no, hard time saying setting boundaries, conflict avoidance. And avoidance became the main theme of my life, right? Romantic relationship, that's too hard, too many difficult feelings, avoid. All relationships now are getting difficult, too many difficult emotions, avoid. And my world became smaller and smaller.
When was this starting? I mean, you've had this for a long time, but when did you really what did you start to experience with that? Some symptoms and stuff, or
8 years ago.
eight
So
years
the
ago?
whole, yes, this whole episode I'm going to describe lasts 8 years, eight very long, excruciating years. So yes, we're talking 8 years ago, but I'm doing a little premise of maybe 9, 10 years ago where I used to write books and I became more and more perfectionist. And the perfectionism really stifled me. Everything had to be perfect, every word, every sentence, every paragraph. And I developed writer's block. I couldn't write anymore. And I'm not sure exactly of the timeline, but let's say it's not a year, 8 months to 10 months later, full blown fibromyalgia. So it starts with a foot. Oh, I go see the podiatrist. Nothing wrong with your foot. Are you sure you're in pain? Yes, I'm sure I'm in pain. Then you wait for the other shoe to drop. The second foot. Now we're talking maybe orthotics. Let's put some orthotics in there. See what happens. Oh, more pain. Take
So
away
it's
the
moving it
orthotics.
from one foot to the other, and you were going to different practitioners to try to see what was wrong.
Yes, and at that point I would say yes, I'm injured. I don't know what's going on. Then it's my right shoulder. Then they found some calcification. And believe it or not, I was happy about that. I was happy they found calcification. I'm not crazy. There's something structural. That was the right shoulder, but then it goes to the left. And I read online that the amount of calcification that I had, lots of people have that, and they have zero pain. So that was starting to really mess me up. This stayed like this for a while. I don't have chronic fatigue yet, but it's feet, it's the shoulders starting to spread to my neck. Then one night, I wake up in the middle of the night in huge knee pain. I didn't do anything special in the day. I'm hurting so much, I'm crying in the middle of the night. Right knee, a couple of weeks later, left knee. And then everything started to unravel from there. It's the hips, it's the groin. The groin would be one of the worst places. And then I go see the doctor, and the word fibromyalgia starts to float around. We do all the tests. You don't have anything. Therefore, you have fibromyalgia. And I would really invite people to really question that word. I think people on this channel know that already, but
It's
I
a
want to put
bad
it out
word, right?
there.
It has a really bad connotation, meaning for
We don't know. We don't know what it is. You've got it. It's incurable. That on you, and you talk about, of course, the nocebo effect. That's a huge one. Oh, incurable. So
yeah.
at
And at
first,
this point, you had no idea about any of this work we're talking about now.
oh,
You were just thinking, oh my gosh, what's wrong with me? Why am I having all these pains and symptoms?
the thought of going to see a psychotherapist was the further things from my mind. And because there's really good psychotherapists out there, nobody asked me in this process in the medical world, like, how are you doing? Are you depressed? Are you in writer's block? Like, what's going on here with you? It's fibromyalgia. At first, I didn't really accept the word. What's the point if it's incurable? Then I start reading about it and pacing and count your spoons, and I'm doing a little better. Then they gave me some pills. I took 75 milligrams of amitriptyline, Elavil, like an old antidepressant. I took that for years. It did exactly what the guy said. It turned down the volume of the pain. You're just masking the symptoms. I was happy with that for a while. I was like, oh, wow, at least now it's more imaginable.
Yeah.
But just to paint a picture, at that point, I'm living at my parents'. I'm sleeping on a blow up mattress on the main floor, so I don't have to go up the stairs anymore. I cannot open peanut butter jars. I have to ask my parents to open peanut butter jars. Some people don't believe me. I can't flip the channels on the TV. I can push
Wow.
on the button 5 times. Then I have to ask somebody. My elbows start to burn. My trapeze start to burn. I can't
Yeah,
even
isn't that
understand.
amazing? Just to pause for everybody to take this in, that you were having
Yeah,
these debilitating, severe, real physical symptoms that were diagnosed as fibromyalgia, and you're going to come soon to learn they were nothing to do with that, yet they were completely disabling you. So just to show the power of the brain and what it can produce, and you're mentioning lots of symptoms from your feet to your head to your hands, right, all over the place.
everywhere. Well, at that point, I started calling it the carousel of pain because now it's moving around all the time. And now it's mind boggling to me how I didn't catch on to this because you're one day your shoulder's hurting 9 out of 10. And you're like, oh, if only my shoulder could stop hurting. Now it's moving to the foot. Now this shoulder is 0 out of 10.
The classic
Now,
symptom imperative that we call it. For those that don't
yes,
understand this, is called the symptom imperative.
the symptom imperative is key because I'm jumping a little bit ahead now just to mention the symptom imperative. But at some point, I did manage to get rid of all the pain. Anxiety, like I've never experienced before. Boom, symptom imperative.
So with
For
the
for
anxiety, you said that flipped to anxiety. Did you have any previous history of anxiety when you were younger that you look back or no?
Oh, yes, yes, yes. So all these mechanisms I find were there now that I can see them, were all there. The catastrophizing, ruminating, uh, just a situation that calls for 2 out of 3 of stress, boom, jump straight to 8, 9. And that's years in the making before the symptoms even. So yes, years of anxiety, social anxiety as well. So yes, this was years in the making. I see the symptoms just as a exaggeration, a caricature of just mechanisms that were there for years in the background. And then this as the ultimate illustration. I felt paralyzed in my life and I literally became paralyzed.
Yeah,
I
and at
just,
that time again, you were struggling so badly, but you hadn't, you can imagine going back, you didn't know about this yet, right? So you were totally stuck in a medical
so
model.
all, so already I'm wasting thousands of dollars going to see your usual suspects at first. No obscure stuff at first, right? Your physiotherapists, your osteopaths, your chiropractors. Ooh, don't get me started on the chiropractors. Kinesiologists, massage therapy, acupuncture. They're pointing lasers at me. I did some therapy I don't even remember the name of. So there's no mind. Nobody is telling me to go see a shrink.
Nobody's telling you
Insane.
if there's anything to do with your mind or your brain. It's all in your body.
No,
Everybody's telling you it's in your body.
because I read. Then I went on fibromyalgia forums, and a lot of people get insulted when they're told it's in your head. That's not the right way to put it, of course. And go see a shrink. I can see that, but I don't know if I would have been insulted, but I would have liked somebody to propose it because in my experience, nobody ever mentioned the shrink, which is very strange. So now I'm taking the pills. I'm pacing. I'm doing a little better, but it's not good. So I start to really look for more obscure therapies, stuff nobody knows about. And I read the Fibro Manual by Ginevra Liptan, and she says um, that I'm highly efficient. That was my dream. I wasn't even efficient. Like she's not healed, but she's highly efficient. And she says I did myofascial release, the John F. Barn techniques. So I look for a therapist here where I live. I find one, and then I go to see her. And this is the first person ever I meet in the flesh. She says, oh, no, it's not like in the book. I'm totally healed from fibromyalgia, she told me. Took me 2 years. I would find out later it cost her thousands of dollars. And she borrowed money from the bank to do this treatment. And she became a little bit my guru, right? This is the first person I ever meet, healed from fibromyalgia. I will do whatever you say. And I got better. I did get better. I mean, they say in this therapy that it is psycho-emotional. I wouldn't say 50-50 maybe. Like it's psycho-emotional, but they say your fascia is very tight. That's why you can't sit in the chair. Your fascia is so tight, you got to loosen it. And then I'm loosening my fascia. And more I can sit in chairs. So I'm like, oh, wow, it's working. And I am working on my psycho-emotional finally. I'm doing better. They do unwinding too, which they based on Peter Levine. Peter Levine is pretty big now, somatic experiencing. So you unwind and you feel all kinds of things in your body. So I am getting better. I'm spending thousands and thousands of dollars. I go to their intensive treatment, and that cost me 12,000. So all in all, I ended up spending $20,000 in this therapy. And at when it was a year and a half, just like her, a year and a half, and they say to set a date. They say that helps you. Picture yourself healthy. Don't say not in pain. Picture yourself healthy and set a date. Like in 2 years, I will be well. So I was picturing that date. I had it very clear in my mind that it took her 2 years. Then I met one of her friends. It took her 2 years as well in this therapy. So I was like, 2 years, 2 years. I'm going to be well in 2 years. The 2 years starts approaching. I'm better, but I'm not fine. And my feet hurt, everything hurts. And she says, because your fascia is still tight. So I've got nothing to cut the pain, the psychosomatic pain, neuroplastic pain at the root.
So you were mainly doing a lot of the body work that they were providing, right? The myofascial release work. How often were you doing that? Like once a week or once every couple of weeks or?
Oh, very often. At first in the book, she says, go twice a week. Then I went to the intensive treatment. That's where you go to the US and they do it to you 3 times a day for 3 weeks. And then I was a bit better. Then I started going less, just once a week. So by the time that this whole crisis is approaching, I'm going once a week. I'm going all over. I'm going to Burlington. I'm going to Ottawa because they're very few and far in between, these therapists. And the date is approaching and I feel like, what's wrong with me, right? These two girls, they did it. I can't do it. I'm a failure. I start to really have self-doubt. And then the date approaches, and this therapist here, she doesn't want to see me anymore. Won't even answer my emails. Totally rejects me. She says, you're supposed to be able to do it on your own now. You don't need me. And I felt I felt like a failure. I felt abandoned, rejected, and all my symptoms came back worse than in the beginning. Worse.
Interesting. Yeah, that's those words that you use right now describes the emotion of shame. For those that don't understand, feeling ashamed, embarrassed. And then again, boom, that can kick back the symptoms. So just we kick it back to these emotions again. That's a nice example of how you're doing a little better, but boom, as soon as that hits the abandonment, the rejection, the failure, I'm not good. What am I doing something wrong? That can really kick up your symptoms.
Yeah, I'm crying a little bit right now just thinking about it. That was very intense for me. And that's when I realized, but it's so long, that realization. That's when it started to dawn on me like, okay, like this is not structural, right? My fascia's released now, whatever, but I can't sit in chairs anymore. I can't do anything. So then a very interesting thing happened. I'm at the bottom now. I'm back to where I was before, where I'm in bed all day.
Wow. So you
Somebody wanted,
basically were getting a little better. You spent all that money, but you weren't all the way there. And then you literally went right back down to where you were bad again.
worse,
Worse.
worse because before I didn't have any solutions. Now I have the solution. These two girls, they heal themselves with this technique, but I can't do it. I'm a failure. So much worse. I've never been this depressed in my entire life. So I'm in bed. Just to give an illustration, somebody says, "Oh, you should really mention that." I'm laying in bed, and there's only one position when I'm not in excruciating pain. I'm in my pillow like this, and I'm trying to watch TV, and I'm trying to push the pillow like this because if I turn my head like this, it hurts. So I got my glasses like this to try to watch TV, and I can't even understand what's going on the Netflix show anyway. So this is really really bad. So then I go to a Christmas party, And I meet this woman, and she says, "No, I've never heard this because these two girls before they were making a big deal out of healing of fibromyalgia. It's like a 2-year epic journey where you meet the inner child and all of that." And then I meet this woman at Christmas, and she's like, "Oh, fibromyalgia. Oh, I used to have that." I've never never heard anybody say it so casually. Her son's like, "Oh yeah, I used to have that, mom, like in the 90s, whatever." And I'm like, "What did you do?" And you know what body work, like in my mind is body, like what body work did you do? And she's like, "No, psychotherapy. I found a good psychotherapist." I'm like, "Well, can you give me the name?" And oh no, she's dead. And I ask her for books, and she won't even give me any books. She says, "No, no, find your own. Like my books wouldn't speak to you." And I kind of agree. I don't think we had the same vibe. But this got me really going on the new trail. Okay, wow, healing fibromyalgia with just psychotherapy. So that's when I found out about my first introduction to this world was the book The Way Out by Alan Gordon. So just to give you an image, I did not read that book the first time. I'm lying in bed and my mother is reading it to me because I can't read a book.
Mm.
We're talking this winter. This is this winter. And you know, I think I read the book twice, and I subscribed to the application Curable. Excellent, Curable. Lots of people heal themselves with just that. But I'm doing a little better. But to be honest, and this is, I really want to stress that, I abandoned pain reprocessing therapy. Like, it doesn't work. I've read The Way Out twice. I'm doing Curable. It's not working. So I'm going to go see a psychotherapist finally. And I look for descriptions of chronic pain, and there's one I like, and it turns out he does EAET, emotional awareness and expression therapy. And I do a session. I really bugged him. He was really busy, and I bugged him over and over. I'm very persistent. Please
Which is
take me.
good.
And he
It's a
took,
good quality for you.
yes, yes, yes. You need persistence to do this process, not intensity. That's what I learned later. Very relaxed, no intensity, but you have to be constant, persistent. Yes, I really bugged him, and we did one session. It was good. I liked it, but then he had some kind of a family emergency, and I only did one session with him, but he put me back on the trail. He gave me some new names. He was like, "Oh, there's not just Alan Gordon. There's Howard Schubiner. There's all these people." So it's like, "Oh, it's not just Alan Gordon, The Way Out." And then I go online. I go on YouTube actually, and I start looking at videos of Howard Schubiner, and then I find all you guys' video. There's hundreds and hundreds of videos, and I started with Tanner Murtaugh, and I watched all his videos in chronological order. I'm very methodic like that. And wow, this guy's like, I couldn't sit in chairs because my brain was telling me that it was dangerous. And I taught my brain that it's not dangerous. And now I can sit in chairs. I was like, it's got nothing to do with the fascia. that
Yeah, isn't that
was,
amazing? Right. Going from the physiology to the psychology.
yes. And I was like, 4 months, 4 months, this guy did it. Amazing. So I started watching his videos, and the first thing I did was stop talking about the symptoms. That was the easiest one. I'm like, "Oh, okay, that's for 2 weeks. My tongue is burning. I want to tell. I'm in pain." That used to be my whole identity. People, how many people have heard about my left groin, my famous left groin? So many. It's crazy.
Yeah, that's amazing. So finding, like you said, there's a broader world. And just to pause for a minute about the PRT, pain reprocessing therapy, it is one modality, or it's one, and not everybody gets help from it, right? So there are some people, and I always say, look, that's why we have the EAAT, emotional awareness and expression. We have some of the other practices that you're talking about here in terms of understanding what this is, the knowledge, and then applying some of the practices. Like, hey, I'm not going to speak about the symptoms anymore because that just reinforces them, something like that. Yeah.
I start to get all these tricks, and then I get the name of Sarno too. So I started to get into Sarno, and Sarno is a whole nother thing. There's no like somatic experiencing or anything like that. It's just go live your life, and you're fine. Your body's fine. I was going like gradual, and Alan Gordon's a lot of avoidance. Oh, avoid the nines, the tens, and that's fine. Then I do all the Tanner Murtaugh videos. I'm doing a bit better. Then I jump to this guy. I don't know if you've heard of him, Jim Prusak. I start watching the Jim
Never
Prusak
heard of that guy
videos.
before. I don't know who he
Yeah,
is.
yeah, he's pretty good. You should look him up. So I start to look at all the videos in the chronological order. That's what I recommend because they're never as good as first, right? So then it gets better, and you guys kind of build on the concepts. So just to give an idea, they always say, don't be too intense. Don't binge watch pain reprocessing therapy videos, right? You can do too much. So the way I started using it was sprinkle them throughout the day. So I would wake up and I would feel pretty stiff, like, oh, that's going to be a rough day. Better take it easy. And then I would watch your video, Get Going, with an exclamation point. I recommend that video every morning. I was like, no, no, let's get going. Let's go do some stuff. And I would go, depending on which stage I was at, walk or even start jogging. And I'm doing better and better. And I come back. Sometimes the symptoms sometimes drop drastically during the activity. Then that's where things really start to get going because you're getting so many exception cases. And I come back home sometimes, the symptoms are worse. If you're better, don't watch a video. The symptoms are worse. Oh, watch another video. I did too much. I did too much. You watch a video. You didn't do too much. It's fine. Oh, that's right. Oh, let's go do something else. So I would watch, I would say 5 to 6, sometimes even 7 videos a day, but
Hmm.
sprinkled throughout the day. No binge watching.
Yeah.
And that's when I really started going. So this winter, I was bedbound. And by the end of the spring, I was swimming and jogging.
Wow. Wow. So just to everybody take that in, you're living proof that you can turn this around, right? There's no timeline I tell people, but you can turn it around and you did that. I mean, so, and you're saying this idea of get going, which I really promote because there's nothing wrong with you. And
Yes.
but just highlight how hard it could be at times because, like you said, some days you'll get a real big kickback, maybe of sensations right in your body after you do something.
I recommend personally gradual at first. I liken it to going into the ocean. That's how I go into ocean. The feet, the knees, the thighs. It's cold, gradual. Then when you're at the hip there, jump in. So at first you reassure your brain. Gradual is good at first. And some people you read Sarno, they just go all the way at first. So everybody's different, but that was my approach. Gradual at first. You really reassure yourself. You start to get lots of exception cases. And then that's when you're really confident and you can just let it rip. Just do
Go
it.
for it. Yeah, that's a great way you said it. It's about confidence, right? When you see the exceptions, you start to believe more and more. Hey, I know what this is. You're starting getting a little bit of progress. The confidence thing can carry you to jump into the rest of the pool or go full bore right at that point.
Yeah, once you have the hip, just jump in. And yes, let's stress that you're gonna get eights and you're gonna get nines. But once you see a 9 become a 0 in the space of, I don't know what, 5 minutes, the nines don't really scare you anymore. You're really aware that you're not hurting, you're in pain, but you're not damaging anything.
Yeah.
That
And just to
was that was
highlight that real
different.
quick, everybody, the word you said doesn't scare you anymore. What you're talking about is this anxiety that you mentioned you've had always before. This is anxiety. Okay, that they scare you, anxiety scares you through the symptoms. People need to understand that the symptoms are anxiety. They're using this, the anxiety is using the symptom as a way to make you anxious. And once you see through that, and sometimes it's quite severe, it can give you a 9 or 10 out of 10, or move it around a symptom imperative, or right. I'm sure you experienced a lot of this to try to really stop you.
Yes, it was moving all around, definitely. And by
Yeah, what
that time,
as you started to do more and more, was it starting to move around? Did it as you started to deal with one sensation really well, it moved to other places? Is that what happened to you?
so the way I approached it was to start with my most obvious symptom. Yes, that's very important to let's backtrack to that. So at first, it's so long for me. It was so long to convince myself that it was neuroplastic, if you want to use that expression. So I started with my left groin. My left groin was so out of control that I would get these pains that would be outside the skin. Here's my skin. The pain would be here, pulsating in mid-air. And
Hmm.
that really made me think of phantom limb syndrome or symptom, right? You have pain where there's no flesh, there's no body. So I started with my left groin, and that's my recommendation to people. Start with the symptom that is the most obvious to you, that it's neuroplastic, that it's not structural. So then my feet are not hurting because of the groin. The groin is so bad, I don't walk. My groin's getting better. So then I start walking. All of the feet are hurting. Oh, well, too bad I can't do the feet because the feet are structural, right? Then I'm
So
like,
you
well, I
believe,
don't
yeah.
know.
So you
So
believe.
so so that's how it works because now you got the handle of it with the groin. So now it's like, well, I don't know, let's try it on the feet too. Oh wow, it works on the feet. Oh, what about the shoulders? Oh, it works. It works on the shoulder too. It works with everything. Amazing.
So you kind of systematically went around and wherever it moved to, you tested it out, you saw the inconsistencies, you applied the principles and practices, and like you said, it turned out, yep, this is another TMS symptom, right? Or brain induced symptom.
Yes, by that time I read Unlearn Your Pain by Howard Schubiner, and I went very systematic with it. I would wake up and I would say, which symptom am I challenging today? You know, probably which one am I most afraid of? Oh, let's do that one.
Yeah,
And
that's the boom. Let's hit a little ding in the button again and stop. Very important. Which symptom or sensation am I challenging today? This is the key, everybody. You need to challenge this because it's going to challenge you, right? That's just get going. And who's right here? It's trying to tell you, no, don't do it. No, no, no. You're in trouble. You're endangered. You got to stay home, stay in bed. And when you challenge it, what happens? It goes down. It gets better. When you avoid, it gets worse. This we have to understand this
yes,
with these
no
sensations.
more avoidance. Challenge, challenge, challenge. So I would do the Howard Schubiner technique where I was one of my big triggers was picking objects from the floor. So he says, do it in your mind first. Does it? Are you wincing just thinking about it? Oh, yes. Well, there you go. That's the mind. That's not the body. So you
It
do it.
proves that it's your brain. Yeah.
I'm doing it like 10, 15 times in my mind first. Okay, I'm not wincing anymore. I go on the floor, I pick the objects up as normally as possible, just like my body's normal. Reaction, sit down, do somatic tracking. Teach your brain, look, it's not scary, it's just an overreaction. So, yes, I was very systematic like that with it, just kind of tackling symptom by symptom, almost going like, yes, which one is the scariest today? Well, let's do that one.
Yeah. See, you had, but see, like what I see in you is that you had this approach at this point. It sounds like you were convinced to me. You understood what this was and you were going after it. It wasn't like, oh, I don't know. You weren't in that doubt sort of anxiety phase anymore. You were pretty clear about what you needed and wanted to do. And you had seen some progress. So you were more confident to even apply it, right? To these other
But
ones.
still some doubt, still some doubt. And that's where I would say that fate comes in. I really like that notion. Tanner Murtaugh talks about it that it's only when you're doing like 80% better then you become 100% convinced. And that's mind boggling. Like, wouldn't be convinced before that. Most people know it takes so long.
Yeah.
And I would say, like, if you're 60% convinced, then there is a sort of 50% of faith. Like, take the leap of faith.
Yeah.
But as you leap, you realize that it hurts, but you can't injure yourself. So you gain more and more confidence, and then the faith becomes knowledge and certainty.
Yeah, that's right. And it's almost like you said 50%. So, you're 60% convinced. Well, that means 40% of you is not convinced. And sometimes when, especially the higher, right, I'm sure you can agree with this, the higher your sensations go, the more your doubt comes in. And this is where you have to dig deep to understand that even if it goes to a 9 or 10 out of 10, it is not different. It is the same exact thing, but just stronger in that moment.
Yes, yes, but I don't want to make it sound like it was easy. Yes,
No,
it
it's
was
not
very,
easy.
very hard. No, no, I make it sound like, oh, I'm challenging symptoms every day and it's going like a breeze.
Yeah.
And no, no, no. So it's not like that at all. And then, yeah, we can talk about that too. Then I'm hitting actual structural limits, right? So I'm challenging all these things. I'm knocking them down one by one. Then I try to sit cross-legged on the floor, and it just hurts, and it hurts, and it hurts. And it's like, how come I can't tackle that one? And then I start talking to people, and they're like, "No, Simon, when you're 40 years old and you haven't sat cross-legged in a long time, you need some kind of right ease into it and tissue stuff." So that then once you reach these levels, then it becomes you do hit the structural. I'm a human. I'm 40. Like, let's not do a triathlon right from the start. But at first, I mean, yes, you can walk 40 minutes, you can vacuum, and you can wash the dishes. And now I'm working with a stretching therapist, and I can sit cross-legged, no problem.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, right. You can have,
Yes,
normal pains and aches and strains, and obviously you can. So you're just trying to distinguish, right, between some of these, brain ones versus body ones, you could say.
but the further along you go, that's it. You start to have a good relationship with your body again, where you can trust the feedback. No feedback is 100% reliable, but more and more it's reliable. So I mean, I'm sitting cross-legged. I'm all my symptoms are disappearing. Instead, it's not that one. So then more and more I can trust my body. Like, oh wow, this is just what normal people are like. Where if you get a pain, that's your body telling you, ooh, the tissues are being stretched in ways it shouldn't. And then I'm still very persistent. I go to see the stretching therapist, and I can sit cross-legged now, no problem.
Yeah, no problem. Great. So then, so you got through. So as you were progressing, right, these things were going down, and then you had just some normal things as you were stretching, right? And I think it's important to note that with these conditions, with sometimes they call these somatic symptom disorder. SSD is a psychiatric term for these things. One of the criteria of that condition, which is the same thing as TMS, or I call BS, brain sensations, is this over focus on the sensation, is this over vigilance and negative bias towards a sensation. So you're getting a normal stretching sensation in your hip, let's say, from sitting cross-legged because you haven't done it in a long time, but the brain can blow it up into some problem, right? And that's what
Yes.
happens to people.
Yes, that's very important. Amplification, they call it. Definitely. Where, yes, there was this thing where at first, more and more I was trusting my body, the signals I was getting, but realizing that where I was coming from, there was the amplification phenomenon that was active.
Yeah.
But
Okay.
yes, so now, yes, now more and more, now I can trust my body. I can trust the signals are reliable. So that I'm getting a greater relationship with my body, because at first it is tricky. Like, should you listen to your body? What does that even mean? If you have, because I had fatigue, we didn't tackle the fatigue. If you listen to your body when you have chronic fatigue, you stay in bed all day. For chronic fatigue, I use the metaphor of, a lot of people think of fatigue as the if you compare it to a car, the gas tank not having a lot of gas or being smaller. I call it the light that warns you when you're almost out of fuel. And now it's way up there. You just fuel 20 minutes ago, and now it's beeping like, oh, we're almost out of, you have the energy, you can do it.
Yeah.
So the fatigue too was it was a delicate dance of, yes, I'm gonna say it. Like, at first you can't listen to your body because there's a miscommunication between the
Yeah.
brain and the body.
False alarm, right? It's a false alarm. And if you think about all these different sensations you had, and fatigue's a good one, people struggle with that one. They're all serving the same purpose. They're different kinds. They're all trying to stop you and make you stay home.
Danger.
Exactly. They're all representing danger, but the danger is coming from your brain, and it's overreactive. It's not correct. It's a false alarm basically going off. And we have to distinguish between that, like you said, and think about it from a protective position of anxiety. It's trying to protect us. Okay. It gives us these sensations, right? So you don't go out because the brain has believed it's too much, it's too dangerous. And that comes from anxiety.
Yeah, so we tackle mostly the behavioral side, but now more and more too, I'm doing the emotional work where I'm noticing, oh, look, it's my shame, it's my sadness, it's my anger that's triggering the anxiety, stress response, fight or flight response, whatever you want to call it. And towards that, I would say that suppose you have a lot of shame. I would say, do you need to pivot and like have your shame become pride? I would say not at first. At first, you can go a long way just by starting to feel the shame, and you can do somatic tracking with your emotions, and just teaching your brain that the shame is not scary can
Mm.
take you a really long way before you actually have to convert the shame into pride.
Yeah, so well said. So well said. We're trying to, right, be okay with these emotions. And shame is a big one because it does not, as you know, does not feel okay. It's telling you you're not okay, telling you're a bad person, you're broken, something's wrong with me. So to sit with that with acceptance, right? And yes, it can start to diminish. And then to switch from shame to pride, because pride is the opposite of shame. Yes, that's where we want to go, to be proud, right, of yourself, to be know you're capable,
Yes.
know you're enough.
So, yes. So now we can talk about the concept I call the pain being the teacher. So, like I said, I became very paralyzed in my life, but now I'm learning to move through the pain. And so I'm learning to challenge symptoms, to challenge the fears. So then I'm like, okay, well, what do I want to do with my life? And I'm amazed because now I have this great new information, and not many people seem to be aware of it. And I start recommending these videos to people in Montreal here, and they're all going like, "Oh, well, we can't understand English well enough." So more and more, I start getting the idea like, "Oh, I'm gonna have to do them myself in French." And I'm very afraid and I'm very anxious. And I was the type of person I didn't even like to get my picture taken. A lot of fear, a lot of anxiety, but the pain is teaching you. The pain taught me to move through that.
Hmm.
So then I did lots of the different things too. I did the neuro linguistic programming, and I'm working with a social worker. And finally, I started doing my own videos in French. And I must say that that was difficult, but that you learn through the pain to challenge the fears. And now you can start doing it in your own life and converting the shame into pride. And now I'm pretty proud now of myself of having moved beyond the pain, but doing something that I actually really enjoy, because it's not enough to just say, I want to get back to my old life, but without pain. You have to have some kind of new vision where, and that's empowerment, that, right? Because you got your emotions, you got your doubts, and then you got your empowerment, where you need to be moving in the direction that's aligned with yourself, with your values. And now I'm doing things that I'm proud of. So we've definitely
Proud of,
shifted from
yeah.
shame into pride.
Yeah, and that empowerment also speaks to pride. They're very similar, right? Powerlessness, helplessness to powerful, right? To be empowered and to be proud is right is the opposite. And that's really what we're building. And if you think about the recovery process, when you're having to challenge this and go through this really difficult time, you are building your empowerment, right? You're building your pride. So in a way, it is a teacher. If we're
Yes.
overcoming the shame, holding us down and putting us down. And so, like you said, it's beautiful what you said. And then you're taking this to the next level and say, I'm going to do this in French. And that's what so many people do. They recover and then they spread it, or they help other people. And that's amazing. We need that because there's not enough people doing this. It's still a very small number.
Yes. Because somebody told me, Simon, like if your house on fire and the fireman comes and saves you, are you going to become a firefighter?
Yeah.
And I was like, I thought about it, scratched my head a little bit, and I was like, there's plenty of firefighters around. There's plenty of them. As far as I'm aware, there's no shortage of firefighters. But this thing is very obscure. So here's something interesting. So in the hospital in Montreal now, they're doing a form of pain reprocessing therapy. So it's really spreading out there, but it's the what I call the narrowest version possible, where they say it's a brain mistake, we correct the brain. Some because I'm telling all my neighbors about this, and they read the article in the paper, and they're like, Simon, isn't this thing you've been telling us about? And I read it. At first, I'm so excited. Yes, yes, yes. Then I read, it's not about the emotions.
Yeah.
Uh,
They've
they,
only, well, the thing about it, that's right. And the PRT, even Dr. Schubert says this, it's like their first step, basically. He says, you want to use it. It's to reduce fear. So it is about one emotion, but it's only very specific, right? But it doesn't delve into like these other emotions you're mentioning, like the shame and the anger, or maybe sadness that exists for people. So yeah, it's very narrow.
and the article was mind-numbing for me, because the guy's only getting better. The guy was really bad, like almost as bad as me. He's only getting better like 80%, 85%. And I'm trying to, I don't know, maybe I should communicate with them. The 15% that he's lacking is emotions, because they're saying, oh, he's a bit depressed. And it's like, oh, that's your clue right there.
That's your clue. Yeah. But remember, like it is emotional. And I always tell people the emotional piece, it's very interesting. I find that is the last piece for people, to be honest, because we're, as a society and from our upbringings, emotions is not something we want to deal with. We haven't dealt with, we haven't learned. So obviously it's something people don't want to look at. There's a resistance to it all across the board, from medicine to society to from our own upbringing personally. So yes, people miss that emotional piece.
Yes. So I want to make a nuance too. So I started maybe from the perspective that I'm presenting here, it sounds like I'm against body work, and I'm not against it, because I did learn a lot through the John Bar. What did I learn? I learned uh, felt sense. Before I started with them, I was not aware of my body. So a good body worker for me is somebody that will increase your felt sense, because I was trained to sit at a desk and think about maths and French and geography. So we're not used to feeling our bodies. We're not used to feeling our emotions. And a good body worker is somebody that will provide really reassuring touch, increase your felt sense. I've had really good therapists that really helped me get back into my body. Another thing to address, I watched in one of your videos, you say people brace. There's bracing, and that's hard to address on Zoom. But yes, you have to learn to. So a lot of these body workers are showing me, look, you're bracing, and it's subconscious. It's going back there. So they taught me to get loose and not hold my shoulders like this. So I wanted to make that nuance where, as I would say, as long as they're not putting you in the structural mindset where you're hurting here because this is pulling on that and that's pulling on this, I would say go for a body worker, yes, that increases felt sense, increases emotional awareness, and addresses bracing patterns.
Yeah, and one thing I'll say about that too, and as a physical therapist training, because I've worked in that world for so long, and now I move beyond that, is I think with medicine, it's nobody's fault. We are working on what we see in the body, but what we don't understand is there's a deeper level, deeper layer. What causes the muscles to pull? What causes that tension? What causes the
Yes,
contraction and the tightness? It's the brain. So if we go upstairs to the brain, we go, well, that's the underlying cause. We have to address that. That's addressing the emotions and the stress and the way we think and your behavior and your personality traits and all the stuff you mentioned. Because people will say, okay, I'm going to relax. And 2 seconds later, you're back up again.
yes,
Or you go to
yes.
therapy, you get a massage, and then it comes back again like it did for you because it wasn't fully addressing the brain.
But if you're doing both at once, you're getting the best of both worlds. You're getting
Correct.
reassuring touch, and you're getting the brain. Because if you look at my pattern, yes, it's true. Like I address the behavioral first, and it's only later that I could finally get to the emotions.
That's
Because
right.
the emotions is the hardest one. The challenging the symptoms with the jogging, that was easier than facing my shame and facing my feelings of being inadequate and not being enough.
Yes.
That was
I'm so
that
glad you're
was very
highlighting
hard.
shame today. I'm really happy you are because to my and having done this work for a while now, and I've in the beginning of this work, you think about Sarno talks about anger, and you talk and Alan Gordon and them talk about fear. Shame got missed. And as I started doing this work more, I noticed shame was probably one of the biggest emotions that people don't talk about, that the TMS person has a lot of because of their upbringing. And it literally cripples people and disables people. And it is a really important emotion to work with and get over. So I'm really happy you're highlighting it today.
That was my biggest one. And Sarno always emphasizes anger and what she calls even rage, which is almost bigger than anger. And yes, my whole life I've avoided conflicts because you mentioned that a lot, because of, I think, even more than shame, the feeling in my education that I received, that was the emotion that was the most dangerous, was anger. Whatever you do, do not become angry. We don't like that. And we don't love you when you're angry. So that's the message you get. You want to belong to the tribe. You want to be attached to your parents, your caregivers. But when you get certain emotions like anger, they cut off the love. So the attachment is so important. You attach to them, and you learn to suppress these things.
Yeah.
And shame was a big one, but anger, I think, is still one of my biggest challenge. And I'm working with a therapist to I throw adult tantrums now.
Yeah. No,
Um,
that's it. And so you bring it back that shame is there as an internalized self-conscious feeling we have, but really there's anger there too, because anger is related to shame as well. And what you said, the personality of the people get these things is typically, not always, but typically the person who doesn't express anger, like for the reasons you just said, it's threatening to have an attachment. So it's not going to help. So we bury the anger, we suppress it. And once we internalize the anger, it turns to shame or depression, right? Or feeling bad about ourselves. So that's the pattern. We start feeling bad. We internalize everything, or we beat ourselves up. We become self-critical. We attack ourselves.
yes, self-compassion was one of the biggest things that I had to work with. I used to be so hard on myself. If we go back to the beginning with the books, nothing was ever good enough. So that's what perfectionism is that you feel so unworthy that you think, if I can do something perfect, they will finally love me.
Yeah,
Of
that's
course,
right.
no, perfection doesn't exist,
Doesn't
and
exist.
you
That's
can't
a
do it.
perfect statement.
So
If I do something perfect, they'll love me. That's this idea that I'm not enough. I'm not lovable as I am. I need to overachieve. I need to overplease, which comes back to the patterns. That comes from shame. Otherwise, I'm not enough. I'm bad. And then your parents might reflect that to you and reinforce it. Hey, I'm not good enough unless I'm perfect, or I get perfect grades, or I please them. And then we develop that. That becomes our personality, into life.
yes, it crystallizes, and you can move out of it, definitely. So these videos that I'm doing are a great exercises in that. So the pain was a great teacher, and you have to find sort of training grounds, because I wrote several books. I never published one of them because of lack of confidence. They're not perfect. They're not good enough. And now I do these videos, and I do them just like you guys. One take, no editing, slip of the tongue. Who cares? Hit, hit publish.
Yes.
Is because I was afraid that I've heard a sentence the other day of radiating out into the universe. I was afraid of that. I was controlling everything. Like, maybe I can let this little thing peek out of me if it's perfect, but everything else I hide like this. And
And the
now
word
the
hide is equivalent to shame. And I'm chuckling
yes,
because it was the same for me when I started to do my videos. I had a patient I got from Dr. Schubiner years ago, where I live in San Diego, and he said, "Jim, you should really start making some YouTube videos." And I go, "Oh no, I don't want to be on the camera." So if you look at my videos, the first section of them is not me. It's all I have images of stuff.
yes, the first
And
video there's no where's
and then you
Jim?
finally see me coming on, because I was like you. I was worried and concerned. I don't want to be on there. I don't want to make a mistake. I don't want to look bad. Who am I to go on there? So I can chuckle at that now, but yes, it's the same thing
And
of
at first I deactivated the comments. Oh, I don't want the comments. Maybe somebody's gonna say something bad. Now
yes.
I've activated the comments, and I had my first really great comments. It's like, oh wow, it's all worth it. Somebody's saying I have fibromyalgia. I'm starting to realize more and more neuroplastic. I read The Way Out, but it's so difficult. She just started, so I've entered in contact with her, and I did my first Zoom meeting with her. I did it for free at first because I told her, "You're going to learn a lot from me, I bet, and I'm going to learn a lot from you. We're both going to learn, and it's going to be great." And yes, I finally activated the comments.
That's great. Hey, that's another piece of progress, right? It's another idea
Yes, and
of
and and
moving
and
forward.
and something I want to stress is that I still deal with a lot of anxiety. I still deal with a lot of problems, and that's perfectionism too. Because if you feel like I'm gonna have to be perfect before I'm out of pain, you're still operating in the realm of perfectionism.
Yeah,
Like you can eliminate your symptoms before you've dealt with all of that. And I still
that's
have my
right.
issues, and I still get these things where for a while I was swimming a lot, so then it's my neck. We're really far from the beginning where it's like, can I vacuum? Can I dishwash? Of course you can. But then I was swimming a lot. It's my neck. What's going on? Oh, I go to the gym a lot. Now it's my back. So it's perpetual. It's a I call it hygiene. It's an hygiene of life.
Yeah.
And a lot of
Yeah,
people have the idea like once I get there, I won't have
yeah, I'm
to
done
deal
with
with it.
it. Right. Yeah, no, that's a great point. I'm glad you made it because it's intertwined with everything we just talked about, your personality and the perfectionism and our patterns of how we work with emotions. Those things aren't going to change overnight. You are changing those things, right? You are working on them, but they take time to really change because we lived our whole lives a certain way. You can't just flip a
Decades.
switch, that quickly. So you can
Yes.
be prone,
So
you can be a prone for them. But the key thing is, I think, and this happens to me too, because I get stuff, you know what it is. The quicker you can catch it, it's like a little spark, a little fire. You can put it out quickly before it blows up into a huge fire in yourself and become chronic.
and even if it becomes chronic, then it's like you say, it can last as long as it wants. Doesn't matter because it's not dangerous.
It's not dangerous.
Doesn't
That's the
matter.
bottom line. Yeah. Yeah, it's fascinating, right? And your story is such a good one because it highlights how bad it can get, but also how you can get out of it, which you've gotten. So where are you now? Compare yourself now to where you were not that long ago, right? You said around the holidays and
Oh my
here.
God. But yeah, so there's something to it maybe that the first guy I listened to is Tanner Murta. He did it in 4 months. I consider I did it in 4 months.
Yeah.
Like from bedbound to basically say more than highly efficient, just kind of almost normal. It was like 4 months, 4 or 5 months, which is kind of. And then you read the Sarno books, and I personally I don't know how to feel about that. These people like just reading the book and I'm all better.
Yeah.
So
But
most
there's different,
people
I mean, to
take a
say something
while.
about that, there's obviously different people, and some people have different upbringings. Some people had more effect from adverse childhood events or trauma or deeper patterns, and somebody else might have just had some stress that kicked up something. They don't have that stuff, so they can just it goes away a lot quicker.
There you go. Yes. So I was in between. It wasn't one of these things like Sarno where I can just read the book, but it wasn't one of these things where I have to do extended psychotherapy for years. And that's true. I listened to because after you, I started listening to Dan Buglio, and I really like Dan. He's like, don't not everybody has to get caught up into this whole like regulating the nervous system, trying to fix everything and healing all my childhood traumas. You can do that late. It's a process, and you can eliminate your pain or your whatever your symptom is before all of that.
Yeah,
And
that's a
you
good
still,
point. Yeah, what you just said, because you said it before, I want to come. Yeah, I had one person I remember working with, a friend of mine in San Diego. He had back pain, knee pain, and he had diagnosed Crohn's disease, which is you would think you couldn't heal from that. He said the same thing. He got over all those, and he said, you know what? You don't need to solve all your emotional stuff and everything. You can get rid of these symptoms, and then you can work. I'm working on that stuff now. So, absolutely.
yes, I am not. I am not perfect. I am not some kind of Zen monk now. I still have lots of issues. I still just I don't somatize as much, and I can go jogging and swim if I want to. I do whatever I want. And the triathlon stuff, I don't even know because I'm not the type of person that wants to do that anyway. So I'll never find out. I,
Yeah.
I I can just do whatever I want now. It's fine.
Yeah, what an amazing story. I mean, you can't literally bedbound, came out back to bedbound, more or less, and then coming all the way back. But this, the second time, you did it quicker and faster, and you understood it, and you really realized it was about the brain more than anything, right? When you got that full understanding. And that's the power here, I think, is for people to understand that it is our brains. The more you believe that and believe in yourself and understand it, you can get out of it. And 4 months is fast. That's pretty quick, to get.
Yes, David Schechter was saying that the other day. He was saying, I won't work with somebody who flat out refuses. At first, you don't need to be convinced. You just need to be open to the idea. Right? Like people can work with a crack like that. But he says, and I will work with people, I don't know, structural, they're not sure. But he says, the more you believe, it goes.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. So awesome story. I really appreciate your willingness to come on. Do you have anything else to share before we go? Anything else you want to say to the audience?
I think we got around all of it.
Yeah, yeah, I think so
it was
too.
it was pretty
And
sweet.
yeah, yeah, and I love these stories because it's living proof of the processes and how it works and how most people go down looking for things and you hit dead ends and it's a maze for a while. But you're like you said earlier, your persistence is the key. Your willingness to keep working the process and go with it, not the intensity, like you said, but the persistence is the key. And then you just work and work, and then eventually things come together.
I do have one last thing to say. Yes. So if you're somebody who gets better because of this, and then you meet a lot of other people that are in chronic pain, I feel like I was in hell, and then I'm in heaven now. So what am I going to just enjoy heaven by myself? That's kind of, I don't know. My personal feeling is like, oh wow, now I have this solution for these other people. So if you feel called to that, that can definitely be your empowerment. That can definitely be, which if we follow the progression, behavioral, emotional, the end is empowerment. So that can be some kind of goal for you to try to spread this around because it's not around enough.
That's right. And I always tell people when I work with them, right in the beginning, I said, look, I want you to want to be a success story. That's your first part. I want you to be a success story because it's outside of yourself. It's like, yeah, you want to be better for you, but look, you're going to share this like you are with other people. It's going to impact them. You're going to help other people. And then you could take it further, like you said, where you've actually now spreading that word. And it's so rewarding on a deeper level. And that I think does help people to get better even more because there's something outside of themselves driving them that's very rewarding. So it's
Empowerment.
empowerment. Empowerment. That's right. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for being on here, Simon, and being willing to come on. Yeah, you're awesome. And it's a great story you shared today. I think a lot of people are going to resonate with it and take a lot from it. So thank you so much for being here.